I'm Zach Cote, and I serve as the Executive Director of Thinking Nation. So in today's video, we're going to explore a particular historical thinking skill of historical empathy. You know, I often say that the chief job of a historian is to understand people from a time and place not like our own. And historical empathy helps us do that well. And so first, let's start with the definition. What is historical empathy? And this is the way we define it. That thinking historically means seeking to understand the past on its own terms by considering the context and perspectives of the era. It also means being aware of our own point of view to avoid presentism in our evaluation of the past. So presentism is a really important word in the study of history, and it basically means imposing present-day standards on the past. And while we often do this, and maybe even should do this as humans, when we are wearing the hat of a historian or scholar, we really want to avoid this presentism. Because remember, our number one job is to understand people from a time and place not like ours. And that means that historians are humble. We're aware of our own personal contexts, we're aware of what shapes us, and we're aware how those contexts might influence our study of the past. You know, in simple terms, having historical empathy or practicing historical empathy means listening to the past. And now this is different than empathy in our relationships because it's an intellectual skill. It's a discipline rather than something with necessarily an emotional background. And so historians ask certain questions like, hey, why did a person or a group, given their context or given their circumstances, act in a certain way, right? So we're thinking about the context behind someone's choices, someone's actions. We're also looking for multiple sources of evidence to really complicate and better understand the narratives that we encounter. One thing to note when practicing historical empathy is that it's not wrong to make moral judgments of the past. However, we need to be thoughtful of our own present context when we do that. So sometimes good is good and bad is bad. And sometimes the way we perceive those things are cultural rather than definitive or concrete or absolute. And so practicing historical empathy helps us do that well. I think often of a quote from the late historian, the French historian Marc Bloch, and he wrote a book called The Historian's Craft. And in that book, he says this: the judge expresses it as who is right and who is wrong. The scholar is content to ask why, and he accepts the fact that the answer may not be simple. This is historical empathy, not jumping to cast a judgment of who is right or who is wrong, cast a verdict, but to really ask why and to seek to understand. And we think that when we practice historical empathy in our study of the past, when we're learning about people from a time and place not like our own, it helps build up those intellectual empathy muscles when we're engaging with people in the present. And really, it helps us become better neighbors, better citizens, better community members. So as you study the past, practice historical empathy. Seek to understand the past on its own terms. Be cautious when casting a judgment, but thoughtful in the complexity and the context of the past that we're studying. Practicing historical empathy helps us better understand the past, but also better equips us to live in the present.